Welcome to Means of Grace, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church.
Welcome to the Means of Grace podcast. This is Caroline Wood, the Director of Missional Engagement and Connectional Ministries. I'm your host today for a conversation with our new Conference Lay Leader, John Crane. Thanks for joining me as we get to know John and hear his passion for lay ministry in the church. Hi, John. Thank you for joining me on Means of Grace today. Let's dive right in.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, John, tell us your story.
No, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning and to share a little bit more about my faith journey and my heart for lay ministry. I did grow up in the church, but not in the Methodist church. As a lot of folks that are in the Methodist church, I think in our area perhaps started out. I grew up in the Baptist church and spent a lot of my formative years attending worship services and being in RAs, Royal Ambassadors, and taking up Lottie Moon Christmas offerings and doing all those things that a good Southern Baptist would do. I was fortunate that I was in a church where I had a lot of my family attend with me, and grew up seeing aunts and uncles and others singing in the choir, and I was very involved in the children's music ministry. Can still sing almost all of the Down by the Creek Bank, Germs, kids musical. And so I had a strong involvement in the church when I was growing up, perhaps not unlike a lot of folks. As I got more into my youth years, I stopped attending quite as much. And it actually wasn't until in my early 20s, I had a really good friend who attended a Methodist church in Gastonia, Bradley Memorial United Methodist, that invited us to come and visit with him. And we did that. And I really found myself drawn to the connectional aspect of Methodism, which was not something that I had experienced before, being in more of a congregational type setting in the Methodist church. And also found that it spoke to me in terms of the integration of everybody, of all that I thought that I was. It was a denomination that said that, yes, Scripture was primary, but reason and experience and other things were part of your faith journey as well. And so we ended up joining that local congregation, and I've been United Methodist ever since.
Wow. What a great journey, the way God brought you back and your family to experience that. What are some of the things that you have found that you love about the Methodist Church?
So I have appreciated about the Methodist Church that it is open to people that have a variety of opinions, that have different understandings of faith. I had an opportunity for many years to be part of the lay servant ministry. At that time, it was called the lay speaking ministry in what was then the Gastonia District. And as we would teach the basic class, one of the analogies that would be used was that you could somehow think about United Methodism maybe as a football field, and you could be, anywhere between the 20-yard lines and still consider yourself to be United Methodist. You didn't, have to necessarily be right there at the 50, but there was a big area of United Methodism that people of different beliefs could align to, and as long as you weren't, up in the stands somewhere or out in out in the end zone, then you were still within the polity positions of the United Methodist Church. Beyond that, I really appreciate the social engagement aspect of United Methodism. I think our commitment to, for example, our commitment to missions and to humanitarian aid through UMCOR is an amazing commitment for a denomination to have, and I think UMCOR is one of the crown jewels of what we have created as it relates to our ability to alleviate suffering and to be God's hands and God's feet in the world. And then finally, I would say, as I mentioned before, the connectional aspect. As I understood and grew more and understood the concepts of a church being part of a district, and a district, being part of an annual conference, and the annual conferences being part of a jurisdiction, and so on. I really appreciated the fact that when we celebrated World Communion Sunday, I knew that there were Christians all over the world who were doing the same thing. And I appreciated the opportunity on a local level to really be in partnership with the churches in our district and in our community, because I do think that Christianity is a team sport. That this is one of those that we are better when we are leveraging all of the strengths of the church, and it's it may be that one particular church has greater strengths than others, and in partnership together with other nearby congregations, they can do amazing things that maybe each church would not be able to do on its own. So those are some of the things that have kept me enthusiastic and engaged about United Methodism.
John, that is a wonderful, wonderful list. I mean, I was sitting here cheering for some of the things that you mentioned.
Well, thank you.
You also talked about lay ministry and lay speaking. And
yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about how you see the ministry of the laity?
So I think everyone would agree that as I said, it's a team sport, and that applies on many levels. We have amazing clergy throughout the Western North Carolina Conference, and they would be the first to tell you that if it was just the clergy, they would not be as effective for the cause of Christ. And similarly, we as laity need the spiritual shepherding and guidance and vision casting that our clergy provides to us. But at the end of the day, and I think as the pandemic has shown us, our churches are not a building. Our churches are not just the institution. Our churches are the people, and our churches are the way that we reach out. And so I think our clergy have their role to shepherd us, to nurture, to equip, to encourage laity is critically important, but it's our job as laity to then be part of taking Christ to the community and learning how we live out our Christian faith in really meaningful and tangible ways as part of our work, in part of how we, in our family situations, and in the community. And so I really see the role of the laity as being the role of the church. I did have a number of years where I was part of the leadership group for the lay servant ministries in the former Gastonia District. And that was tremendously fulfilling for me because we would see all types of people who would come into that program. Sometimes we saw individuals who were felt like God was calling them to take a step towards maybe full-time ministry or maybe at least becoming like a local pastor. Sometimes they didn't really know what God was calling them to, and they were just trying to be obedient to take the next step, trusting that God would reveal whatever would come after that when God was ready. And it was So that was great. But we would also see people who had been appointed as a lay leader in their church, and they felt like it was, although they themselves did not have any particular calling to preach a lot in their church or do other things like that, they felt like it was a good example for them to show that it was that as the lay leader, they wanted to participate in the program and be a model for members in their congregation to say, these are learning opportunities and ways that we can grow in our faith and connect in with our brothers and sisters at other churches, even if it's not something where we feel like we're, going to be called to go out and preach at other churches and things. And it was wonderful to see the way that individuals would come in. And we did have a number of folks who the lay speaking ministry was their entree into going into more full-time ministry or finding other ways to serve. And so I have always enjoyed the opportunity to be part of helping other folks along their faith journey. And I think that is our lay servant ministry program is one of the key areas that we as a conference are able to do that. And hopefully it's something that we'll continue to see more people continue to explore.
So when you talk about the lay servant ministries and the certified lay ministry program that we have, if someone is interested in getting involved in that, how do you explain that to them, or what do you tell them about it if they're just wondering? Do you get involved and you're going to end up in a pulpit? Are there other ways to serve? Not all of us are public speakers or want to stand up in front of a crowd.
No, that's a great question. Thank you. And you're so right. In fact, when I became involved in it, and perhaps when many of those who are listening became involved in it, it really was called the Lay Speaking Program. And there was a perception that this is what you did if you either actually were beginning to try to explore movement into ministry, or if at a minimum you felt that you had a calling to pulpit supply or proclamation of the word. And several years ago at General Conference back in, I think, 2012, the church was intentional about changing the name and moving it from lay speaking to lay servant, because we wanted to acknowledge that people serve in so many different ways. And this is not a program that is just targeted towards those who feel like they're called to proclamation of the word as their primary means of service. The lay servant ministry can help individuals regardless of how they're serving. It has courses that help you lead meetings better. And a lot of the courses are designed for perhaps spiritual growth. So focusing on your prayer life or understanding more about United Methodist polity or how we're organized. And so I encourage anyone who's wanting to learn about it. First, we have information about it on the conference website, and that's a good resource to go to. Second, I encourage you to speak with your pastor because the pastors understand the program and are an important partner in helping a lay servant grow. And then finally, you can contact your district office to be put in contact with either your district lay leader or the district director of conference lay speaking, who can share more information about the program with you. The first class that we ask everyone to take is an introduction to lay servant ministry, and it really provides a good overview of the role of the lay servant and the different ways that individuals can use the program to grow in their own faith and in their and helping to equip them for whatever area of ministry they feel called to.
That's wonderful. Are there a series of classes or are courses, or how do you navigate all that? There's different statuses within the lay servant ministry program. As I said, the first course that is taken is
the basic lay course. And after you've completed that, and with the approval of your pastor and your church conference, you can be considered a basic lay servant in service to your church. And some folks choose to do that, and that's all they care to do. And then there are a series of topical advanced courses that, as I said, span a lot of things, from missions to prayers to leadership to the history and the polity of the church. Those courses are offered at different times and in different sequences, but usually a district will offer courses at least once a year. And I know most districts will offer it at least once a year, and they try to offer several different courses if they can. Once someone has completed at least one advanced course, and with the approval of their church conference, they can be recognized as a certified lay servant, which means they're then enabled to be in ministry beyond their local church. And sometimes we have individuals who are certified lay servants who, for example, might be called upon to go speak at a United Methodist Men or United Methodist Women's event, or perhaps they do help lead a worship service at a different church when the pastor is on vacation or away for a while. For those individuals who really feel a calling to proclamation of the word as their primary means of service, there is another level that we call the certified lay speaker, which really focuses on preaching. And there's a variety of courses that need to be taken for individuals if they really want to focus on that and as their particular means of service. And then finally, there is a role called certified lay minister, which is another level of commitment. It requires a very strong commitment to a rigorous course of study, and does require individuals to begin to get involved in some of the same kind of things that a pastor would get involved in as it relates to having conversations with the District Board of Ordained Ministry and going through a more formal certification process. But the certified lay minister is someone who actually, in partnership with ordained clergy, can be asked to step in and provide ministerial leadership to a congregation on a more regular basis. And that's not a role that we have used a lot in our church, in our Western North Carolina Conference in the past, because frankly, we just haven't had the need for it. We've been blessed to have a significant number of clergy, and we've not been in situations where we really did not have the ability to appoint at least a part-time pastor or a local church pastor, someone who was on the ordination path to serve in our churches. But as we continue to think about new ways of doing ministry, and frankly, as we look at the age demographics of our clergy population of the Western North Carolina Conference, and the age demographics or the numbers of folks that are potentially coming into the conference as new ministers, we could see a significant need for that in the years to come. And it's great to know that there is a program in place and a path in place for those who feel like they're called to a more full-time service to the church, but are not in a place in their life where they are able or wanting to move into ordained ministry and frankly, an itinerant ministry program as we require of our ordained clergy. So there is a place for everybody within the lay servant ministry program. And I really encourage folks who feel a nudge, even if it's just a little nudge from God to explore it, to reach out and to see what it has available for you.
That's great. So, John, tell us about your family.
So our family lives in Gastonia. My wife, Roxanne, and I are blessed to have two boys, Jonathan and Zackery. We are nearing the end of the period of time where we potentially will have kids at home. Jonathan is 20 and is enrolled in the local community college, and Zackery is a senior this year. So we will hopefully, fingers crossed, soon be empty nesters. Although they talk about sticking around a lot longer than what I thought they were. So we'll see how that goes. So we are members at First United Methodist Church here in Gastonia, where we've been there since about, I think, 2012, we mostly attend the First United Methodist Church has a contemporary worship service, which is branded as 162 East, and it is it's a Sunday morning contemporary worship service that's actually held in a theater space, and so that's the primary location for us to worship. When, of course, we're able to worship in person. Right now, we're at 162 East Facebook is our normal Sunday location, but we enjoy being part of First United Methodist Church and look forward to the opportunity to get back together in person when we can.
Nice. So, John, what does your family do for fun?
Different things. That's the key. That we found that the key to us having fun is being willing to have fun separately at this point in our life. If we need to do that, we typically take some type of a family vacation every year. And my wife really loves going to the beach, and I enjoy the beach, but for different reasons. I'm not much of a go out on the sand and play in the ocean kind of guy. For me, it's sit on the balcony and listen to the waves while I'm reading. But we enjoy. My kids, of course, are doing. They play a lot together relative to video games and those kind of things. My wife is a voracious reader, and I'm a strong reader as well. And when it's not so amazingly hot, we enjoy. She and I particularly enjoy going on hikes, particularly up and around the Blowing Rock area. We have some friends up in that area, and we like going up to Julian Price Lake and seeing being out in nature a little bit that way. But so we do different things, but we've found that we don't have to all be doing the same thing to all have a good time.
That's wonderful. So what do you like to read?
Well, I am, my typical topics are not ones that folks would find, or many folks would necessarily find very enjoyable. I'm not much of a fiction reader. I grew up doing a lot of fiction reading and really enjoyed Westerns. I read a lot of the Louis L'Amour Western books and a lot of science fictions. I'm a big Star Trek fan, and so I read a lot of the Star Trek books growing up. Now, the majority of the things that I read fall into the realm of either some type of business or leadership book, books about ministry and the church, or books that are associated with history. I am I like biographies, and I like presidential histories, and information about different eras. I've recently read, I'm in the middle of reading right now, a book on Winston Churchill and his leadership during World War II. And I really enjoy the work of Doris Kearns Goodwin, who's a presidential scholar and has written books on Abraham Lincoln and others as well. So it's not, I read a lot, but I have moved away from some of the spending the time with fiction because there's so much other stuff that I want to read that I just don't make time for it as much.
John, you sound like a person who is always learning and
well, that's
always
one of my
growing.
Well, thank you. I try to be that. I have. I will say some may have taken there's a program called Strength Finders that helps individuals understand kind of what are your top 5 strengths. And one of my top 5 strengths was learner. So that is something that I have always enjoyed doing. I collect information. Not all of it is useful, but I collect a lot of information and really feel like maybe, one of these days, I will be in a position to be a professor and share all of this eclectic knowledge that I have gained over the years, but no one else really cares to hear right now.
So what should I have asked you that I didn't?
Nothing that you haven't asked me. I just would like to say in closing how much I am appreciative of the way that our laity and our clergy have worked together during this COVID-19 crisis, and to continue to do the work of the church, to stay connected, to stay in ministry with their community. I know that it has not been easy, and it has caused us to use ministry muscles that a lot of folks had never used before. But I believe that even in the midst of this turmoil and as bad as this has been, there'll be things that we learn that we will be able to use when we move back into normal ministry times, and I think there'll be things that we can continue to do that will be helpful for us as churches. We'll learn from it, we'll grow through it, and we'll be better in the future because of it. So I'm really grateful for all the ways that folks have shown up as being the church during these past few months, and we just encourage them to continue doing that and see where God would lead them.
Thank you for listening to Means of Grace, a podcast produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church. We hope you enjoy listening to these podcasts and use them as a way to stay connected to our community. Remember to subscribe to Means of Grace for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us an honest rating and a review. It helps others find this podcast. Follow the WNCC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WNCC UMC. Once again, that's at WNCC UMC. Means of Grace is produced by the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church and Andy Go of Gojo Studios.